So it's just that you may be knowing maybe more than me on in certain this area or some other areas, but here I'll be just sharing my perspective, and also in future I will all have opportunity to learn from you as well. So to start with, my brief introduction, as Shekhar has just mentioned, I did my engineering in mechanical engineering from IIT Bombay. I did my MBA from Jamnalal Bajaj, and then also I did international trade management diploma as well as TQM diploma from Narasimhan Monji. And I worked with the companies like ABB. I was part of ABB Robotics division in the global role. I was based out of Shanghai. Actually, I was in Shanghai till end of 2019, and I just came in before this COVID started in China. So that way, I consider myself quite lucky that I came to India just before it started. And also the Johnson Electric. Before that, I worked in a global role, uh, and there I was leading on the new product introduction and quality based out of Hong Kong. Uh, and prior to that, I was in India working as a senior general manager with Blue Star. Worked as for Philips in Asia Pacific, and General Electric in India as a US, as well as other companies like Asian Paints, Reliance, and Mahindra. And my area of expertise is business excellence, customer excellence, cost reduction, productivity improvement, new product development, organization design, strategy deployment, Lean Six Sigma, modularity, design management, and quality. So I will just cover that. Can actually
So you can
someone?
continue because people are still coming in. So there'll be few disturbances. Please continue, sir.
Okay, okay, fine.
I'm muting everybody, but still,
Okay.
please go ahead, sir.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So, like as you also see from my profile that I moved from Shanghai and I was working in Hong Kong. And when I moved to from India to Hong Kong first, so at that time I was finding it very strange that in my building, apartment building, lift in building, also my apartment was facing the sea coast, so there was a long sea face, and every day, twice a day, there used to be cleaning happening by the authority and also by the building management, including lift cleaning, to that sanitizing, that what we call and all. And I was very surprised in this thing that why people are doing so much cleaning. Means this, I found sometimes that these people are very kind of too finicky about all this thing. But then I also then understood that they had experience of SARS, and that made them realize that like sanitizing, cleaning, and all these things, even the railings on the complete sea line was also sanitized twice a day. So it's like possible to do. They were able to do, and possible to do. It became normal for them. So I guess that even after this COVID, once we come out of whatever is the current situation, so it will also be quite normal and normal way of doing things like hygiene and all also. So it's a kind of a good opportunity for us to step up to the next level. And I know that now on everyone's mind today, like most of the people here on the call and all over India, is that how do we get back to the business and revival after lockdown? How do we get back? There are worries, there are anxieties for all of us, and it's quite obvious and very natural that we will have this. But such things have happened in past, and also we will overcome together. So let's see that we also you use this crisis as opportunity. And I have just picked up this quote from Einstein that in the midst of every crisis lies a great opportunity. And I just taken an example. If we see, and all of us know about it, so it's not that's anything new I'm telling, but I'm just bringing this point here. That in Japan, after the Second World War, after the nuclear bomb explosion, the kind of devastation that had happened, and from there it became made in Japan. And also Japan was very powerful economically. Americans felt, it was on Time magazine also, that Americans felt that Japan is invading their business. So similarly, we can also do that, and we will do that in terms of like from whatever the situation we were in the manufacturing to make in India or in similar anything. I'm not so fast, this thing about this slogan like in India, but the spirit behind it is that we will be able to do it, and we have to do it. And this is some information that I'd like to share, since I've lived in China, Hong Kong for quite a long time. So like I wanted to relate, I have seen them working and all. I worked with them. So like in 1980 Indian economy was bigger than China, and with their focus on manufacturing and all, the China economy today is 5 times bigger than Indian economy. And still we can also catch up with the current opportunity. Now how do we make use of this, best use of this situation during lockdown? Many people have done different things during lockdown. At personal level, people have done like in terms of catching up on their health, catching up on their sort hobbies and thing. On social level, people have done on most family time, virtually being with friends also. But at business level, now that there are various ways to do that, and something like some people do like learn new skill, we redefine the business plan, and there are also more options available. Develop a new product, make use of this time to develop a product or adopt a methodology at least to develop a new product. So that's why I've selected this topic on this new product introduction. Now, why we need to have a new product introduction? Quite robust way of doing. There is a methodology behind it. It's not like there is a word in English, as many of you would be knowing, serendipity. Serendipity means like accidentally finding something and then using it. But that doesn't work in business scenario, because you have to have planned way of innovating, a planned way of finding new products. And so that's where it makes very viable business. It's very important that we need to have a proper methodology for new product introduction. And I have led that especially in ABB globally, and also prior to that in Johnson Electric. Uh, the reason for this we require is that if you don't have proper methodology, then there could be product which can become failure after it is developed, or there could be manufacturing issue, there could be quality issue, and so many redesigns required. So it leads to a lot of cost and affects the profitability. So that's where we need to have a proper method for developing new products. Some of you already may be knowing that. And so when any product is developed, it goes through various phases, whether it is methodical way of developing or even not methodical way, but it goes through certain steps like development, even commercialization, etc. There are, see, investment done at various stages. In each stage, the investment, if you see, the slope is higher and higher, which means that the if any correct decision is taken at initial stage, say for example, screening stage or business analysis stage, and then it is very easy to steer efforts in developing successful product. And and also, if you see, there are ideas which are really feasible from the time you get maybe say at the beginning, if you may have, say, for example, 60, 70 ideas, by the time it comes to real successful product, which from where we can make money, there are hardly one or two from that. So that's where it's very important to follow the methodology and all. So the various phases, many now international companies are using as like the various steps, phases of product development. It starts with idea generation, idea screening, then concept development, business strategy development. That means that even if your product is good, but the thing is that there is no proper strategy to introduce in the market or to sell it to the market, then also it's not good. Also, what there are product may be good but may not be uh, affordable by the customer, or there may be different target customers. So that's where business strategy is also very important, and there are various tools used for that. And then it leads to product development, which is mainly the technical aspect, testing part, not only the product but also the in the market, and then commercialization, which is like some companies call it industrialization or ramp up, and so or some I think in automotive industry they call SOP, start of production. And so that's also very important phase, because that's where we need to ensure that everything is robust, so that when we have mass production there won't be any issue, because the cost of correcting any issue at mass production is significantly high compared to the cost of production, cost at initial phase, and then introduction to the market. And so these are various phases like idea generation, idea screening, concept development, testing, marketing strategy, business analytics, product development, test marketing, and commercialization. Uh, and in terms of idea generation, there are various sources of idea, which can come from either from the market research or from the customer, or also by looking at competitors or substitute product, whatever. And so that's where the many product ideas that get generated, but there may be in the funnel maybe large number of ideas which needs to be further analyzed. And then it's that's where analysis of screening needs to be done, where the screening is done not only from the product merit point of view, but how does it fit in the overall company or organization's plan, or their current infrastructure, current distribution or sales channel, or current supply base, or whatever. So an entire things needs to be analyzed while screening. There are various tools available. So like and so also need to look at company strength, weakness, customer needs, expected return on investment, and affordability, and concept development and testing. So then there is something called proof of concept, which we did when I was in, say, Johnson Electric or even in ABB. So we first see the feasibility of developing the product from the idea concept, or from the we have like we create from the customer's requirement, which are not necessarily in exact specification. Customer may say uh, very not so clear way what customer wants. There are various tools available like QFD, Kano model also, which are used to translate that into the exact specifications what is required, and that specification is also then translated into the product. So for that is like first is the concept development is done, and it is testing is done. There are again various methodology and tools available. I'll not go into detail of this because of the time, because if I have to cover entire new product development, the methodology in detail, it takes almost for 6 to 7 days, full days to cover, including the tools. Uh, uh, The next is the business strategy analysis. So again, the finding the feasibility of the product to sell in the market and make money out of it. So and that also includes based on your marketing mix, based on your product mix, based on your customer mix, channels, sales channels available, competition of also, as well as the cost. And not only that, the cost of capital. So, so that's where this detailed analysis is required. Again, there are several tools available, and then comes the product development, where the detailed development design phase is there, where again there are various tools you use, especially anything that you develop, it should be manufacturable. So there are various aspects in manufacturability called design for manufacturing, design for reliability, etc. Design for serviceability, and many other tools to ensure that it doesn't fail in the actual service of the product. And so these are the various tools used. Uh, and then it is the prototype, they are tested not only in the lab but also in the market, because many times if you test in lab, what happens that you don't capture all the possible use or abuse of the product. And many times it's if it is not captured, then in reality when it is sold to the customer, it affects the product, it fails in the market. And also then customer is not satisfied, there are issues, customer claims, warranty cost, and so many things. So again, there are various reliability tools which I've used in my earlier roles, which can be also shared in more detail if we have time. And then finally the commercialization. In the as a part of commercialization, most important thing is to make the manufacturing process such that it is a mass producible. So the product which is developed, so many times it is the products are very beautifully working in labs at development stage, but when it is produced in mass, the same conditions are not there, because of the production pressure, because of the variability in the supply of the components, because of the variability in manufacturing process. Uh, it's very important that there is a commercialization done. There are various tools used, especially say for example in automotive industry, they use the transition from design to manufacturing. There's a concept called PPAP. Some of you are from, if you from automotive industry, then you would be knowing that this is a PPAP tool used product part approval process, where it ensures that the product meets the requirement even when it transits from the design or lab stage to the mass production. And uh, and if it is not done, then the cost increases substantially. Even if it is not done optimally, then again the cost is not optimized at this stage. So this is a very critical step in introducing new product in the market. And then there are some other additional concepts which I have implemented, used, is called modularity design. Because what happens that there are many different kind of configurations or variants required by the customer. Also, you from marketing point of view, if you are in consumer product, then you may want to introduce product just to make customer feel that customer is upgrading. I'll tell you, when I was a student, there was, we used to use calculator, Texas instrument calculator, or Casio also. So at that time, many of the functions which were available, doing permutation or integration, but which was not there on the tabs. That was maybe the company's strategy, that not to introduce and introduce in phases. That was one aspect, but this is different from modularity. So modularity actually concept we used ABB, where where we have two development phases. One is the development of module, and then that is a platform development we call, and then next is the development of configuration. So what this helps is in reducing the time to market. Time to market means the time required to introduce a new product, because you already have a platform ready, and then you have to create some kind of variants based on that. But it's not so as easy as it is said, because even for that there are various tools available. You have to make sure that it covers the design space, cost aspect, and all. There are some kind of calculations done, where so that you have optimal platforms, and you cover the entire range of the variants that you plan to, or you will be launching in a later date. So so this is again a new concept which I have actually done, and this concept actually is catching up quite in automotive industry, especially in automotive. The OEMs are the people who manufacture the cars, like Ford or Mahindra, those things. They are called OEMs. So in the OEM the automobile platforms are there. We were doing some project when I was in Johnson Electric. We were doing some project where we were suppliers for General Motors, and then so they were developing some platforms, and that's where they were doing design so that they can create many cars out of from one platform. Similarly, in ABB for robots, we have done for various robots. So we have a robots platform and then configuration, and we call them also called variants of the product. So this helps in, first of all, reducing the development cost. It also helps in supply chain. It's not just the design cost, but also helps in supply chain. Supply chain in the sense, even long term, say for example, inventory that you may have for the manufacturing of the products that you will sell in future. Because then this if you follow this concept of modularity in scientific way, then you can optimize on the components and raw material in such a way that it helps in standardizing various components across various your products. So from that point of view, it helps your supply chain also. One is from the inventory point of view, also from the purchase point of view, because then your suppliers, or they will also have good scale available, and so the cost will be less. So this is a very powerful concept which is now in used in industry. Probably it started with automotive industry, but now it is catching up with all, because the last I have implemented in robotics, and as I understand, it is also now happening in other industry. So this is also, we can be ready. Another trend which I have not prepared a slide here, and is even digitalization. Digitalization is also catching up, and many of you may be already aware, that there are various mobility kind of, a lot of work is done in, especially in automobile company, and having a lot of digital platforms, IoT, that is Internet of Things, where like they interface with the machine, or machine to machine interface is also highly automated through internet, cloud. So many things are there. So industry will change. Now the most important thing that we need to note, that this COVID or lockdown has accelerated the transition to digitalization. And this was also said by Singapore Prime Minister, I think yesterday or day for yesterday. If you read some Singapore based newspaper, because I still need some read some Hong Kong based newspapers. So and there it was very clear that the lockdown, or global lockdown, I'm talking about, and also this COVID will accelerate the digitalization, and it is already like you might be seeing. For example, IT companies have now are talking about working from home as a way of life. Earlier it was exception or not done so extensively. Now it is going to become quite normal. Like somewhere I had read also that TCS is planning to increase work from home from 15 or 25% to 65 to 75%. So this will affect even real estate and everything. So digitalization is also impacting the new product development a lot, and this will affect all of us. So it's also important to keep abreast with all this new digital technology, because it's going to be accelerated implementation. In fact, I had also read a few days ago that some senior person from automotive company had said that with this COVID thing, or as a fallout of lockdown and all, global lockdown I'm talking about, as like more uh, automation will come in industry. So we can also gear up for more automation, more robotics used, likely to come. So these are all some of the opportunities, because all this create new industry, and so also create opportunity for doing new things, and also doing business in that. So these are quite good opportunity that I see, and would like to share with you. And also, like I mentioned about various tools and methodology used in product development. So there are, say, almost 11 methods used in customer integration and market research and R&D stage, and there are 26 kind of different methodology, which I have not covered because of the time lack of like, because we have to only 1 hour in this session. And so there are like 26 methods used, and that each method has different tools on project management, purchase management, cross-functional methods, and quality and logistic methods and all. So all these are actually used in only for new product development, which helps to bring in efficiency and effectiveness in new product introduction. I can share more of this maybe and sometimes in future, or if you want to know more, I can send it offline to anyone who is interested on this. And uh, and so that's what actually I wanted to share, and this is my contact details. So in case you want more information, you can contact me. I'll share this presentation with Shekhar, who can forward it to you. So right away after this meeting, I will forward it to Shekhar. So any question that anyone has, we can have discussion.
Yeah, the floor is open to anybody who would like to ask the question. Please go ahead.
So good afternoon. Wonderful presentation. I'm Srinivasan, Vice President, Laghu Udyog Bharati, and also running a company for 35 years in electronics, Wipro Electronics. With your experience in working in China and Hong Kong, I would like to know a little bit more about how they develop new products and processes in China. They become world leaders in electronic manufacturing.
Yeah. So see, first is in China, there are two major things. One is that say if you say the methodology, then these are the methodologies used, which are quite international methodology also in some industry. Uh, when it comes to, like you say, electronics products and all, so they have actually good ecosystem available for new products. Like say, for example, if you want to develop a new product, say now we talk about ventilator. So let's just talk about ventilator. So it requires a lot of components. So in China, because of the scale, it is China and global manufacturing happening of components over there. The availability of the components is very, very easy. So if you come with a concept on new product, then for you to make it possible, physically possible, is easier, because then you have components available. You can get the components from from China, in China rather. And another thing is speed is there. I have seen the difference between other countries and China. Although we say that China is highly autocratic and all that kind of organization, but at the same time I have seen that there is a lot of speed. And when I shifted to Hong Kong and working with Chinese people, the kind of times they talk about in terms of developing things or completing any task, it was quite short compared to any what I was used to, or any person in Europe is used to. So it's very, very fast way of the decisions are very fast. That could be because it's centralized decision, that could be a reason. But their decisions are very fast, and also they adopt things very fast. I have seen that even usage of technology, if you say the usage of mobile and app and all, was extremely high even among old people. Plus in terms of working, they are work very hard compared to what I have seen in other places, because I have as a part of my role I have traveled and worked all over the world. So they are extremely hardworking, as well as they follow tremendous time punctuality. I have seen uh, our factory used to start at 8:30, so 8:30 the machine was on. Like the operator was at the machine, and not like many other countries, like in Europe, in Northern Europe. uh, Even I have seen in Scandinavian country, where people have a lot of breaks and all. They kind of, they call it social breaks. So there is a big difference, and we can also do it. So this is the kind of difference I have seen. I hope I'm able to answer your
Yeah,
question.
thank you, sir. And I just wanted to know that Make in India could be successful if possibly we can develop tools and other components in China and bring it over here for manufacturing. That's where we look at it right now.
Yeah, I think once we have that scale, and see, make in India is first, is that we have to start making in India. A good thing about India is that we have already good internal consumption. But at the same time, if you see uh, other how other people are perceiving us, because since I've had opportunity to work with people in from other countries. I had some colleagues from Europe and this thing. So they see us as we are very smart, very intelligent, very highly educated, but at the same time, like our speed is not there. So that is where we need to change. Uh, and when it comes to manufacturing growth in India, also the kind of infrastructure that is required, that we don't have. Even the clearances time, the set time to set up a factory is not there. But things are changing also in India, so that's quite good. And also I've seen that China, it is also reached saturation even before COVID. Like in November or October, I had met some people from other countries like Canada and all in China, and they also had the same feeling, because what happens in China, the wages are rising a lot. The cost of labor has constantly gone up. Although I was not directly involved in the that aspect, but what I heard is that even in my company, their wage increase was 15 to 20% every year, and that was very high. So over the years, the wage cost has gone up. So earlier in China, there used to be a lot of manual operations. But I see that after 2015 or 16, many companies have started going for automation, robots, and even I'd like to share that in Shanghai, when like every year they have robotics kind of exhibition, and there were like 16 bays of in the exhibition center. Out of that, 14 bays were Chinese companies, and only 2 were international companies. So they are also going very strong on automation, artificial intelligence a lot. So I'll not be surprised that um, they come up with extremely good robots, or even have very good equipment with artificial intelligence.
So there is a question from Mr. Navale. He is asking, we are into high precision component manufacturer for different segmented industries. Is there any institute or agency who can help us if we want to develop our own new product and do brand marketing?
Yeah, what actually when you say marketing means, is it the selling in China, or what is the?
It is not in the China, sir. It's globally. Actually, we are into component manufacturer.
Mm-hmm.
We would like to have our own brand new product. So for that, is there any institution or agency who can help us to develop in a new product as well as the brand marketing globally, not only in China, in India as well as global?
Yeah. Okay. So in terms of say the kind of following certain world-class methodology, there are some institutes available on that. I can offline we can probably discuss, and I can suggest some depending on exact need on that. So probably we can discuss it once we have more information, or once I have more information on this.
Mr. S.M. Joshi is asking a macro question, sir. China is developing new products fast in all areas due to its communist system, or is there any other strong reason for that? Please explain.
Yeah, so their reason is not just this thing, communism. Their reason is that first of all, if you say there are various aspects. One is cultural aspect, okay. Second is infrastructure. I'm talking about not just government provided infrastructure, but infrastructure in terms of availability of the various other components, or material, or even universities. They also have good tie-ups with universities in terms of developing new products. So first is on the cultural part, like they're very fast in terms of action, and that's where I think they are able to do fast. That I've seen cultural part. Second is on the ecosystem part, because so many component manufacturers are there. They are able to get the components to develop new product very easily, and it's a very affordable cost. So that is the reason that they are able to develop the new product very fast.
There is a question from Mr. Vineet Kumar. I'm from academics. For engineering institutions to convert projects into products, is there any program from Government of India?
From Government of India,
Yes.
Currently, actually, since I was abroad, I just returned to India end of 2019. So I'm not aware of any programs available in India. So, I actually I don't know if there are any, but to my knowledge, I haven't come across any.
The floor is open. Please go ahead and ask the questions.
Sir, Shekhar, there is a call from a person regarding the project for converting into products. If a particular project developed by the engineering college can be associated with an MSME, those projects can see a funding if it is innovative in idea from the Department of MSME or even from Center for Excellence, ISC, or other Government of India institution. So kindly make a note of Mr. Vineet Kumar. We'll keep in touch at a later time.
Thank you, sir.
Sir, my name is Reddy. I just want to ask a question.
Please go ahead.
Yeah, many a time, sir, when we compare our products to Chinese products, we find that I don't know whether it's deliberate or not, that our raw material, the cost of the product doesn't even cover our raw material cost. Are they deliberately underpricing, or I'm not able to? What is your experience from China?
See, first of all, see, Chinese people are very conscious about money. So I don't think that they are underpricing anything. They are like very, from the business point of view, they'll never want to lose any money like any other people. But the thing is that the cost there is low because of various reasons. One is that there lot of infrastructure cost is less because they have huge shared infrastructure, and which is also partly developed by the government. And, plus productivity is high, and that is because the number of items they can manufacture in an hour or in a day is much more than any other country. So that could be some of the drivers for their cost is very low.
Also, I
And
understand, sir. Also, one more thing, sir, they duplicate a lot. You worked in ABB, right? For ABB.
yeah,
They are selling an ABB circuit breaker design similar to ABB under some other name. That's very common from there. We get a lot of what do you call that, offers.
yeah. See that it is there. They are able to basically create an alternative similar product, reverse engineering, whatever we call. Okay, quite fast. So again, they are in China. If you say fundamentally new product is very rare, at least in the past. In future, with their shift in focus on innovation, the government is also focusing on that. In last 3 years, it may happen in future. But it's like they are very good in copying the products. And that is what you mentioned is right, that they create alternatives like of the original branded products, and it like in terms of life it may not be that good, but it may
Yeah, exactly. You're saying that's very correct, sir, because it looks the same, but functionally the life is not there. Especially for an electromechanical product, we have found that.
Yeah, no, that I've also observed that, but I also see that see in around 2017 or 16 17, the in South China especially, they call Pearl Delta area, which is Shenzhen and Dongguan, that area. So there they have given a lot of focus on innovation products, and they wanted to convert from low end to high end manufacturing. So in future it will change. It will change because government is pushing for it.
There's a question from Mr. Girish Gumaste, sir. We are into manufacturing special purpose machines, hydraulic and hydro pneumatic presses. We need to go global. How can you suggest us how to go about?
Yeah, see, there are various aspects to this. This is first is marketing aspect, product creation aspect, uh, etc. So it will be like no, not possible to give this in a short like a session like this. But probably if you want, we can have a discussion offline on this, because there are various things involved in going global. Not just technical, but there are also managerial aspects in terms of marketing, promotions, etc.
Okay, yeah, yesterday I was just reading a report, sir. It states that China exports about 70 billion worth of products to India. How can India substitute this import, sir? Is there any way to do that?
Uh, in terms of, see, China has been exporting to all over the world. And if you see, like in my slide also, it was shown that in 1980 they were their GDP was lower than India, and now they are 5 times India. So now, see, the thing is that China is able to export this 70 billion to India. That's primarily it's driven because the Chinese products are uh, low cost, and so our traders or whatever, they go and buy those products, and so that is a prime reason. If you have to really replace that, then we'll also have to start manufacturing at that price, assuming that there are no other trade barriers put, uh, and China is able to do the low cost because their scale is very high. I'll tell you that when I was working in Hong Kong, so I used to I used to go to our factory in South China almost every day or 3 to 4 days a week. And so next to my factory we had a Foxconn factory, and if they in Foxconn factory, only in one factory they had 12 lakh people working in one factory. Nearby we had also Nike supplier, and in one factory 90,000 people were working. That is the scale. In our factory there were 26,000 people in one factory working. So that is the scale which helps them to keep low cost. And normally there are people are migrant workers, so they come, they work very hard, and they go once or twice a year. Hello.
Yes, sir, we can hear you, sir.
So that's where I think it's all economics which is playing. That why China is able to sell because of low cost of manufacturing, and it started with a lot of initially their cost of labor was low, so all manual work was shifted to China. Then gradually they also started getting more and more in the value chain of manufacturing, and that's how. And even if I suppose we have to do similar thing in India, then we have to also start and then go up in the value chain. And advantage what I have seen, that see, the in terms of even the competency of people also increases with this, because now in China, because they have such a huge growth in manufacturing, local people have started developing a lot of technical competency which they did not have. And at the same time, in Europe, where they closed factories and shifted to China, the people who had a lot of competencies have lost their jobs, and they did not, basically they lost the competency. So that is also an effect of that, that the China has developed a high competency because of high manufacturing cost.
Now there is a thought, sir, that most of the businesses from the Western world will shift to India from China. So how real is that, sir? I mean, is it really going to happen, or how is it?
Actually, again, my view is that, see, it can happen, but it's not that easy to happen. And it will not happen on its own, because currently most of the items are manufactured in China. And why it is manufactured in China? Because of low cost of manufacturing. And also, and why low cost? Because infrastructure available. They have over the period of 30 years, they have developed competency to do that. So in order to make that happen, to shift, we'll have to have certain policies that we are able to match the cost with China. Because most of the companies there who have shifted from, say, America or Europe to China, they have gone primarily for cost.
One last question. Can anybody ask?
Yeah, this is Vriksham Suresh here, sir. Can I come in, Shekhar?
Please go ahead. Please go ahead.
Sir, it's a very interesting point you said. 1980, you have the GDP lower than Bharat, and now 30 years, 5 times more than the GDP. Apart from the pricing, which is one of the P's, what other key things that has triggered this 5 times more GDP than Bharat? China. This is question one. And if Shekhar can permit me, I would like to ask the second question. What are the kind of massive skill investment that these guys, Chinese, have done, which we are missing? Thank you, sir.
Yeah, a very good question. So first is that regarding this massive skill, when China actually started opening up in 80s, they didn't have good skill base. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So in China, they have lot of institutes. They give this vocational skills. Government has given a lot of emphasis on that. And also they encourage a private kind of the kind of a skill. Private means I am not talking about private colleges, but I'm talking about the companies. They have their kind of own school for the skill development. For example, like when I worked with Johnson Electric, we had something called Johnson University. It was not a university like a university, say IIT or something like that. It was like a Johnson University means they used to get many people from village is in China, rural area in China. Many young school, like maybe 12th pass or something. And then they were like trained for 2 to 3 years for a skill. So like in my company used to train nearly 2 to 3,000 people every year. Get. And then they provide schools, everything, all the facilities and all. And it was seen by our company as a good investment, because then those people stayed, worked for the same company, stayed long, and also it was kind of a return on that. And many of these companies have started done this kind of approach, because in China there was a huge shortage of skilled people when suddenly the industrialization started. So they had to like not only dependent on the government to provide skilled labor, but they had to develop their own skilled labors.
Thank you, sir.
So there is a question from Mr. Rajesh Chinchanwadi. Can you suggest blueprint for India, especially MSME, to compete globally with China?
There are so many things because it's not just so simple answer that maybe one or two things we do, and also it is like many aspects are there. But few things what I see is like one is the scale and speed. There are two things which is making difference from China and us. Even if I have seen our suppliers were also very big. Means like in India, like when I was I was working in India, the kind of suppliers we had, so that scale has really also helped, and government also might have helped in terms of financing or so to achieve this scale. But at the same time, it was also the speed, and that is also very important to match up with China.
Okay, one last question before we close. One last question before we close. Anybody? I think we'll close. Thanks a lot, sir, for addressing LUB membership, despite your very busy schedule. In fact, it was quite a learning experience. In fact, you were talking about automation. Post-COVID will do that. So we'll take note of that, sir. Can I request Mr. Narayana Prasanna to conclude the session, please?
Yes. It was an excellent presentation with clarity on fundamentals of new product introduction by Mr. Amit Mehta. Our sincere thanks to you, Mr. Amit Mehta.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Narayan, and thanks, Shekhar.
Yeah, and today is the special day for us also. It is a 25th webinar of Laghu Udyog Bharati during this COVID-19 lockdown period. We had a very good response for these programs.
Mm-hmm.
Many subjects had been covered with regard to MSME's present issues, problems, and for the future preparedness programs also we have done. The subjects like financing, marketing, account-related, motivational, food processing, digital technology were addressed and presented. Faculties from SIDBI, NSIC, RDSO, GEM Portal, SBI, and team from our Tech Bharat members also presented their presentations. Special programs with the Honorable Minister Shri Jagdish Shettar, Honorable DCM Shri Dr. Ashok Narayan, and a program with the Honorable MP Tejaswi Surya. Also, we have conducted these three programs, and we have submitted our representations and demands to the ministers and the MP. These programs were well accepted and appreciated by our members. For these programs and these achievements have been done with our team members. I sincerely thank our team senior member Shri Bhojraj ji for your sincere efforts, sir. Also, I thank our President Shri Shrikant Datta, Vice President B.S. Srinivasan, and more importantly, our Executive Secretaries Shri Shekhar and Dilip, who have done background works, and they are daily working more than 8 to 10 hours on this. I also sincerely thank our participants who have been supporting us for the past 25-30 days. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Amit sir.
My pleasure, Shekhar. And just if you can send your email ID, I will send
I'll
my
right away send it, sir.
presentation to you.
Thank you very much, sir. Once again.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, sir.